Hey everyone, welcome back to TechBit Academy. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we are looking at the architecture of a simple click. We're going to go way beyond the user interface today to demystify the underlying mechanics of human-computer interaction, and we'll reveal the hidden structures that basically govern our entire digital lives. So think about it. What actually happens when you talk to a machine? Every single time you tap a glass screen or click a physical mouse, you're initiating this profound, totally invisible translation process. I mean, it feels instantaneous, right? Almost like magic. But underneath that sleek casing, there is an incredibly structured, highly complex dialogue taking place. Section 1, the invisible conversation. You know, we often think of using a computer as just pushing buttons to get a fast result. But at its absolute baseline, interaction is purely communication. It's a continuous, two-way flow of information back and forth. You send a signal, the system receives it, executes its internal logic, and then sends a signal right back to you. User to system, system to user. It's just a fundamental, non-stop loop. Section 2, anatomy of a simple task. To really wrap our heads around this continuous loop, let's dissect the specific vocabulary used in interaction design, and we'll use a standard graphic design scenario to do it. Just imagine opening up a completely blank digital canvas on your monitor, getting ready to create something. This setup is going to be our anchor, so we can see exactly how an interaction is structured from start to finish. So, the crucial point is how we categorize this bottom-up progression. First, at the very top, we have the domain, which is just the broad area of work under study. In our scenario, the domain is graphic design. Inside that broad domain, you have a goal, which is exactly what you want to achieve. Right here, your goal is to create a solid red triangle. But you can't just wish that triangle into existence, right? You need a task. A task is how you actually go about doing it, ultimately funneling right down to the physical operations or actions you take. For our goal, the task is selecting the fill tool and then literally clicking your mouse over the triangle. Domain, goal, task. It takes us from the broad area of work straight down to the physical action you perform. Now, here's a kind of funny little reality in the design world. If you dig into interaction documentation, you'll often see notes stating that the use of terms differs a lot, especially task versus goal, sometimes complete with those 3 panicked exclamation points. It really goes to show that even the experts who study this stuff struggle to agree perfectly on the jargon. But keeping our funnel in mind helps keep it all straight. Section 3, the human versus the machine. Once we understand that hierarchy, we run face first into a fundamental problem, a massive translation gap, if you will. In system design, the system and the user aren't a unified whole. They are treated as completely separate, distinct concepts. It's almost as if they're two strangers trying to collaborate on a project. And because they're so fundamentally distinct, they use completely different languages to express those domain concepts we just talked about. Out of the box, they don't naturally understand each other at all. Section 4, speaking 2 different languages. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visually contrasts the core conflict of human-computer interaction. To achieve that single goal of making a red triangle, you and the computer are speaking entirely different dialects. The machine speaks the core language, which is rigid and entirely internal. Meanwhile, the human speaks the task language, which is focused entirely on our perspective and our real-world actions. Let's deepen that comparison for a second, because this is where the dynamic really comes to light. The system's core language describes purely computational attributes that are relevant to the system's state. It literally only understands its own internal logic. But the user's task language describes purely psychological attributes relevant to the user's state. You, as the user, are operating entirely in psychological desires. You want a certain shape, you want a certain color. The machine, though, it operates entirely in computation. It has absolutely no concept of what a desire even is. Bringing it all together, we finally realize what interaction truly is at its foundation. Interaction isn't just tapping a screen. Interaction is the bridge translating between these two completely distinct worlds. It is the ongoing, absolutely vital translation engine that takes your psychological human attributes, your task language, and constantly converts it into the computational attributes, the core language, that the machine actually requires to change its system state. It is a non-stop, hyper-fast active translation. Which leaves us with a fascinating final question to ponder. If systems inherently speak the language of computation, and humans inherently speak the language of psychology, well, who should be working harder to translate for whom? Should we have to adapt and learn the machine's rigid computational language, or should designers build systems that flawlessly understand our human psychological language? It's the ultimate tension at the very heart of interaction design, and for sure something to chew on the next time you casually click your mouse. Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer.